three senators that represent.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get the meeting started. Limestone County Board of Education meeting is now called to order. Notices for the meeting were properly posted and provided to those who requested direct notification. Let's let the record show that all board members are present. Mr. Young is going to lead us in a prayer. Mr. Schultz is going to lead us in a pledge of allegiance. Mr. Young.
Let's pray. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, come to you tonight asking for your hand and guidance as we conduct school business. We pray for the people around the country who's experienced devastation through weather and things of that nature. Pray for our student body and our faculty as we try to get through this school year, and just lead us and guide us as you see fit. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I might agree a little bit.
kind of watching
mean
Okay, we have an agenda before us. We have an agenda before us. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I need to take Lori Beth Johns, that's 7B3, 7D9. I need to remove that from the agenda, please.
Okay. Do we have a motion to accept this agenda that's been amended?
I'll offer motion.
We have a motion by
I'll
Mr.
second.
Grace and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Okay, we have first reading of the fiscal year 2022 budget before us. And since it's first reading, there's no action taken? Or?
There's no vote today. First reading today, then September 9th at our next board meeting, we'll do the second, and then you'll vote on it after that.
Okay.
Today, we're just gonna go over it, so this is just our proposed budget.
Okay.
So we can still make changes, we can do the things we need to do. First off, everybody, I had emailed everybody a copy of the PowerPoint, and I emailed you a copy of this packet earlier, about four-ish late this afternoon. If you'll look, there's an updated B1A in here, but the only thing that's changed on the B1 as compared to the one that I emailed you is the special revenue column. That's our federal funds column, and we still have allocations coming in, and so we're still putting those in the budget. And then I had to go back and I entered the C&P salaries and benefits in there because Lori had all the other budget information for them, and I just had to load up salaries for them. So, okay, at first I'm going to read what I'm required to read, and then we'll get into the PowerPoint and we'll talk about the proposed budget this year. A complete hard copy of the budget packet has been made available here for public viewing into AEA, and the board has requested to receive their copy electronically, but if more copies are needed, let us know by leaving your email address with Sherry. After the second hearing, the information will be made available on the school website. This is the first of two required public budget hearings for FY22. The board will vote on the approval of the budget immediately following the second hearing, which will take place on September the 9th at 6 p.m. The budget is due to the State Department of Education no later than September 15th. The board welcomes your input, and all questions not answered tonight should be submitted to me or the superintendent in writing on the form that's provided in the budget packets. Every effort will be made to address those questions at the second hearing. Our budget preparation and process, our local schools, their bookkeepers, they work on their local school budgets. Kim Emerson works with them, and they all collaborate and work together to get the local school budget. For the departmental budget, Dr. Shearhouse and I met with each department head and talked to them about their needs and what was going on in their department. Staffing. Earlier in the year, we've taken a look at every school to look at staffing needs, and they were reviewed and considered when, and also special ed, and the available federal funding, and our projected enrollment for FY22, and the staffing numbers were assigned accordingly. The FY22 capital plan was compiled by the maintenance director and the superintendent and was approved at last month's board meeting. The FY22 budget reflects the first year of the 5-year capital plan. Federal budget allocations that have been received are included, but some of these have yet to be confirmed and will be added at a later date. The highlights our budget. The overall proposed budget for FY '22 is conservative on the revenue and the expenditure side. In addition, this board has communicated a commitment to maintain 3 months fund balance, and we will maintain this with the proposed budget. Although the State Department of Education only requires a reserve equal to 1 month's operating expenses, which would be approximately $8.7 million for FY '22. To maintain our 3 months fund balance, we would need approximately $26.1 million. For the budget process this year, Dr. Shearhouse and I met with every director to formulate the FY '22 budget. This year, we have also met with principals to address some of their needs as well. State revenues were based upon allocations, and local revenues were estimated to be flat for next year. Most, not all, federal revenue allocations have been received and are reflected herein. They are added to the budget as they are received. For FY '22, the state did not decrease our foundation units for a school, even if ADM was down due to COVID. In addition, the state gave a 2% raise across the board, with an additional increase given on the Alabama teacher salary schedule up to 5.7%. So we're going to go over some of the budget documents now, and we're going to go over the PowerPoint and talk about some of the proposed things that are in the budget. So first off, if you look at our general fund revenue this year, it's $106,391,492. Our special revenue fund, which is our federal money, is $38,253,411. Our debt service is $4,654,378. Our capital projects fund is where we have said that we will move $6 million into the capital projects fund this year, with $4.8 million being for capital projects and $1.2 million being for capital improvements for our sports facilities, for a total of $6 million. And that's budgeted in the proposed budget for this year. And the fiduciary fund is at $1.3 million. If we look at our total revenue that's budgeted by state and federal, state revenue is $87.7 million. Federal revenue is $33.6 million. Local revenue, that includes our ad valorem and our sales tax, is at $34.9 million, and we'll break that down into the presentation. And other revenue is at $296,000 for a total of $156 million. And you can kind of see the little pie chart. It wasn't cooperate with me today, so I still don't think the pie chart is exactly right where it needs to be. But our local and federal revenue were about the same. Our state is about 75% of our revenue, and other doesn't even show up on the chart. The next thing I want to look at is I want to look at our Lea allocation, and this will compare our foundation program from 2021 to 2022, so we can see where any changes have came in for us. If you look at salaries, they're up $5.5 million. Our fringe benefits are up $2.3 million, and other current expense is up $3.1 million. If you look at classroom instructional support, teacher and material supplies went up to $700 a teacher unit this year. So the overall change for that was $153,000. Technology went up $163,000. Library enhancement went up $19,000, and professional development went up $12,000. And if you look at our textbook fund, it went up $147,000, and this year is the ELA adoption year for our textbooks. So we're going to budget an additional $1.5 million to cover the cost of the ELA textbook adoption. So it will be there when it's time to buy the books. In addition, because it takes the $900, what they give us, based on looking at this year and looking at the fill-ins and the extra books we have to buy during the year, it takes that money to be able to keep the year running and get everything that our kids need. So if you look at our local funds, when we had our board retreat, we talked about our 10 mil match. Our 10 mil match this year is $5.6 million. Last year it was 4.9, so that's up $679,000. And let's see, what else I'm saying about that. I told y'all about the ELA adoption. We talked about the capital improvement, capital project fund. We talked about some raises. We've also this year budgeted, Dr. Sherhouse wanted to budget $50,000 for student workers to help them with work-based learning, so our children would have an opportunity to do some of that. And so it's in the proposed budget this year as well. So let's move over to the highlights of our state funding to finish that up. For our school nurses, our FY22 allocation is $603,000, and that's an increase of $180,000. Our technology coordinator is $60,967, it decreased $400. Not really sure why, but it did. Our transportation operations is up $56,000. If you look at transportation, our fleet renewal, it's up $124,615, and that helps to cover those new buses we bought last year and put into service. And this year, after talking to Rusty, to stay with our fleet renewal plan, we need to purchase 11 buses this year, and it'll be right around $1 million. But we have money in the budget if you so choose, just to go ahead and pay for those buses this year, and then we'll get the fleet renewal money. We'll get paid back for those buses over the next 10 years. It'll just go back into our fleet renewal money when they send it to us, so it would just pay us back. If you look at capital purchase, it's up $884,000. Our at-risk is up $70,000, and our career tech O&M for Vince NIM, it is up $27,000. It went up to almost $100,000 this year.
What's the capital purchase? Why is it up so much?
The capital purchase, some years it goes up from year to year. To have a really good answer, I'm not really sure why it went up $884,000, but the capital purchase helps us in our capital projects fund. It'll go in there and helps pay for that, and helps with our debt as well. Next, let's look at our local revenue, and let's look at how we budgeted that and how we looked at it. I went back and looked and wanted to budget this year and talked to Dr. Sherhouse on what I really think we're gonna receive for this year. So we know we're like in August, so we had received through July. So I looked at what had came in through July monthly, and then I looked at August and September of last year. And we're receiving more per month now than we were in August and September last year. So we went ahead and budgeted relatively flat for what we've received. Based on the trends and what you see, we'll probably receive more than what we've budgeted, but this is a good conservative guess going with what we've actually received. So if you look at our sales tax for 52 penny and our constitutional penny, it's like $20.1 million. Our 5.5 mil ad valorem tax is $3.3 million. The 3 mil district regular ad valorem tax is $1.7 million. TVA in lieu of tax is $1.8 million. Ad valorem under 778 is $1 million. Connections Academy, we get that 3% fee from them. It'll be right at $600,000 this year. We also get money where children from Athens City come to our Career Tech Center, so that's about $125,000. Business privilege tax is $41,900. District choice $7,000. Helping school tax $6,400, and manufactured home registration fee for $2,900. So if we look at the proposed general fund budget, and this mimics what's on your read one that I showed you. The instructional support is $81.3 million. That does include all these lines will include the 2% increase. Operations, maintenance, and capital is $8.8 million. Auxiliary services, which includes transportation, is $7 million. Administrative is $2.8 million. The administrative includes Dr. Sherhouse, the board, finance, any of those offices. Our other is $1.5 million, and other fund uses is $2.9 million, and that $2.9 million includes the C&D pass-through that we're required to pass through the general fund to the C&D fund every year. So that gives us $104,649,655. I went back and looked at our salaries and fringes to see what percent of our budget was going to salaries and fringes, and it's about 81%. The next one we're going to talk talk about is we're gonna talk about operations and maintenance. So operations and maintenance is budgeted at about $8,845,696. And for maintenance this year, we have budgeted for 5 new custodians. There seems to be a need for custodians, so we went ahead and put $250,000 in there for new custodians. If they're needed, they would have to be determined where they needed to be, but the money's there if they are needed. In addition to that, lawn care, if we were to need lawn care this year, or if we were gonna stay with our custodians, whichever way the board decided to go, there's $300,000 in there for that. When we met with Steve, we looked at utilities, and we budgeted utilities up about 5% because we could see where we were spending a little more. Utilities have got a little more expensive. We also increased, his budget $100,000 from his other purchase services, and what that entails is, that's where we have fire alarms that has to be, inspected every year, the sprinklers, the boilers, and everything like that, so we needed to cover that. We backed it down several years ago, and we know, Steve has said we have to get all that inspected, so we went ahead and increased that $100,000. We also budgeted a truck for $37,000 for maintenance. And then the other thing we increased for him was, we increased plumbing, electrical, and lights, and all that. Seems like that's going up, some of it he's having to replace a little more. So we went ahead and added $40,000 for the budget for that, just so it would be covered. And then if you can look on here, you can see the categories of what it boils down to. And I went ahead, because it's operations and maintenance, I put the safety fund on there because you guys have already voted for the safety fund, and our ETF funds are gonna take care of that. The $758,440, and the security, which is our SRO officers that we're also thankful for, is about $500,000. And if you look at the breakdown of the employees, I emailed them to make sure I got the latest count. There's 1 maintenance foreman, there's 12 maintenance employees, there's about 40 custodial employees, and there's 2 that work at the bus rentals. So that takes care of operation and maintenance. Do y'all have any questions? Steve's here. And I've got his budget with me if you have any questions about operations and maintenance. Okay, the next one we're gonna look at is transportation, and Rusty's here tonight as well. For transportation this year, we've got $1 million budgeted for those new 11 buses that will be on our fleet renewal this year, and we'll get repaid that over 10 years. The salaries and benefits for them are about $5.1 million. Fuel parts and supplies, we went ahead, we usually budget $400,000 for fuel for buses, but we decided this year, Dr. Strauss, when we met with Rusty, we were gonna go ahead and budget, since the fuel cost is rising, an extra $50,000 to cover any fuel costs. It may not go over that much, but it'll be there just in case, to be conservative.
Are we seeing I guess a decrease in fuel usage because our buses are new? Is that offsetting the increased cost at all, or do we even notice that? We've got 30 new or 40 new buses on the road, right?
We do. Our biggest thing that we're seeing is decreased parts. That's the biggest,
Okay.
even it's showing up heavier than fuel.
Okay.
Is the parts.
And I think we
We're
did
actually
great
running more
for the
miles
parts.
on them buses with all the after-school program.
Yeah, we're probably one of the real reasons why we're not seeing all them fuel
Yeah.
savings is because we're actually.
We're wearing them new
stopped.
buses.
We've been running all summer, so I mean, that's a large portion of it.
And if you look, we went ahead and we have budgeted for, I think Rusty said he needs 1 more truck to replace his fleet, so we put 1 more truck in here this year for him. And he's told me he has 117 bus drivers and 22 aides that we pay for.
What's the software, Rusty?
It's for our trucks and buses, we have to buy a subscription from Cummins each year, because everything's plug and play now. So we have to have laptops, we have 4 laptops, and, we'll have 4 that our camera systems run on, any kind of codes that we run on Cummins, all that software has to be bought through them. That's
write the specs for the buses? You can't write that in the specs to get it for free?
Unfortunately, no. I wish we
We
could.
do with garbage trucks.
I wish we could. And then plus we have to buy it from Ford too. We bought all Ford trucks, so we can use the same software. So anytime something throws a code, we're able to see it.
Are we short any bus drivers?
Oh, absolutely.
You volunteer?
Sick.
You'll have to volunteer.
I just put it on my list of things to do.
We currently have 6 open positions and no one to interview for.
Okay.
We have 7 that are going to be in class, new driver class, starting the last day of this month and running through the 2nd of September. So those 7 hopefully will all pass. And 6 of those will immediately go to routes the 3rd of September, or as quick as y'all will approve them. And then we have 3 more that finished up their permit test, and they will start training as soon as my driver trainer gets cleared Thursday with her help. We'll be back to training again.
So what are we doing now? Or are they doubling?
Yes, ma'am. Unfortunately, we are. We have mechanics driving. I've driven every day. It's all hands on deck. We're doubling routes. We're splitting routes. We try not to do true doubles because doubles mean you have to go somewhere and come back to school, get another route. So we're in the process of splitting all of our routes. So we can split amongst 3 or 4 people and hopefully carry them all out at one time. That makes it easier on administration. So they're not having to hold kids in school. So we're doing that pretty much every school. Dr. Shearhouse can tell you, he gets the text that goes out at night to let you know that
Who's doubling up, yes.
it's a lengthy process, but if we can just get through and get those 7 trained, that will be a significant boost for us.
Okay, y'all got any more questions for transportation? Move up to child nutrition. There's really 2 major categories in child nutrition. You've got your salaries and benefits, and you've got your food and supplies. Runs their budget about $5 million. As I talked about earlier, you do have your C&D pass-through, and that's the amount we're required to pass through from the general fund to the C&D to keep them whole during the year. We can look at the end of the year, and if they have more than 3 months fund balance, we can pull some of that back. But generally, they need that to sustain their program. She did give me her employees. There's 1 supervisor, there's 24 managers and assistant managers. There's an accountant, a secretary, 45 workers, and they do have 1 maintenance employee, and that helps them out. And the next page, we're gonna talk about the general administrator. It's $6.8 million. That encompasses the superintendent and his staff. It's $431,000. Board management and legal fees is at $279,000. Business support services, which includes finance, is $1.3 million. Human resources and administrative services are $776,000, and communications and advertising is $7,500. We did this year because the board talked about it at the board retreat, 2 vehicles for our executive directors, and we put 2 Explorers that are $27,000 a piece in the budget. If the board decides that they want to go that direction, it's proposed, so you can decide and let us know if you want, but those 2 vehicles are in the budget.
What's wrong, Bill's tired driving that truck?
And our next page, we're gonna go over debt. This is just our debt service, and we're in the process of refinancing some of our debt, so this will change. But if you look down our debt schedule, our debt obligation this year is $7.3 million, and that's what we'll pay on our debt this year, is $7.3 million. We are paying our debt down. But that'll look different after we get this refinance done, because a lot of this will be rolled up into one, and that's when we're gonna get the savings from it, and we'll keep moving forward with it. So
Hmm? That's right. It's hard to do, but you can pull it off.
Now, let's see, we've talked about raises, we've talked about our capital projects fund. We've talked about, we did put, there has been a need we've heard for, that some of the schools are needing furniture. So we put $500,000 for furniture in the budget this year. Proposed, but if that suits the board, so we can help out with some of those furniture needs that some of the schools have asked for. We budgeted.
You know the problem I see with that? When you go to a ball game or something, you'll see tables left out, you'll see chairs left out in the rain. They're going to have to do a better job of taking care of what they got. I see that all the time.
We have budgeted $700,000 for Southern MOCX. We talked about the 5 new custodians. We talked about the lawn care. I think I've been over the big items. In our ETF funds is where we've got our SROs budgeted and our safety fund, and we need to upgrade some servers in the technology department, and we've got about $300,000 in there. And I think if you look at our raise this year, it looks like the raise will cost about $1.6 million, but that'll be covered with state funds for the units that are in the state funds. So do y'all have any questions for me?
How do teams contracts figure into this? So is that the correct terminology?
That's
Teams
correct. Yes, sir.
contracts?
The teams contracts, Bill knows more about teams than
I'll explain. So,
Okay.
so what I have to do is I have to go in and submit a form to the State Department verifying that they have the right certificate, they're teaching the right classes. Dr. Strauss has to sign off on it. And essentially what they do is look at the years of service, and there is a salary matrix. And so we actually pay their normal salary, but the state's going to reimburse us for the gap between their normal salary and what teams pays them. So we'll get that refunded back to us to cover the expenses of that extra amount for teams. And you know, they get, we have one hard to staff school, and we have several teachers from Tanner that have applied. So they get an extra $5,000 on top of their team's contract. And that's really kind of the only difference between anything else. We do have some national board certified teachers or STEM teachers, and we have to put them on a different contract. They go on to what we call a advanced contract, and so they can sign a 3-year contract if they're under 20 years. If they're over 20 years, they have to sign a 5-year contract. And so everybody else, until they get their STEM or national board certification, they're on a preliminary 1-year contract, and they have to meet certain goals along progressing through to getting their certification. Because if they don't, then we can pull them off that contract, or not renew that contract at the end of the year if they're not making progress on it. So there are some things, you know, it's a really good deal for our teachers. We've got, I think I shared with Dr. Strauss,
29.
We got 29 teachers that have taken advantage of it.
Does that count the ones on tonight's agenda?
It does, yes,
Okay.
sir. That we actually qualify for 44 math spots and 44 science spots. So, I mean, you can see we still have not filled all of our spots out. There has been a little bit of uneasiness about the process and about giving up tenure, and you know, and so I think it's kind of scared some teachers, but they're starting to kind of come around and trusting kind of the process. You know, we've tried to explain to them that, you know, you do get to come back from tenure one time. So, I mean, it's not like you completely give up tenure. You get to come back one time. I think they're starting to kind of understand it. But it is a fairly lengthy process. I spend a lot of days just doing contracts because, I mean, they're very time consuming. So, but it seems to be going well.
Mr. Chris, like, for example, a teacher with 27 years and a doctorate could make $94,000 a year. And then plus, if they got their national board certification, they'd make $5,000 additional, plus a hard-to-staff school, another $5,000, and then a failing school, another $5,000. So they could actually get $15,000 additional dollars if they worked in one of those schools. We don't have any failing schools, but they could get $10,000 if they worked in a hard-to-teach environment. So
What criteria are we using to determine a failing school? I thought we got rid of that.
that's a state. That's what I said. We don't have a failing school.
Yeah.
Steve, stop the program.
Yeah.
So technically, that $5,000 is not on the table.
Right.
Okay.
We've already got there talking about.
Well, sounds good.
We have about 7 out of that group, about 7 that are certified right now, either a National Board Certified teacher or a STEM certified teacher.
So when we look at those contracts, and it has the number they're gonna make in it,
Yes.
do I add for National Board Certification, or is
No,
that
it's-
already added?
It's already in there, yes. That's the number that they will be paid, in their paychecks.
And there was some bonus to getting National Board Certification, so is all this in addition to that number as well?
Yes, sir.
Good.
Because they normally got $5,000 a year to be national board certified. That's submitted to us in November, October.
Okay. All right.
It's a very good program. I wish we could expand it to our special ed department and other areas that are really hard right now.
How about everybody?
Yeah, it'd be good too.
Okay. Good.
Any other discussion?
I got more questions.
Okay.
I don't know if somebody else does, though. Anybody else?
Go ahead.
Fire away.
Okay, we used to talk a lot about locally funded units. How many locally funded units do we have?
Locally funded units, certified units, I have 7.
7. Okay.
How many did we have last year? Okay.
Any other discussion?
Keep up with
I
it.
do.
It's in your book. If you look in that big booklet I gave you, it's on each
Okay.
sheet, and then this column, it tells you our certified units
I
are
got
up
you.
here at the top. It'll show you that it's those 7, we have 7 monthly.
Okay, so I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but at some point, we need to move the money above 26.2 million out of, whether it's the ending fund balance of FY 2021 or the beginning fund balance of FY 202, which in my mind should be the same number. At some point, we gotta move that number into the capital projects and change its beginning fund balance or its ending fund balance.
And we will do that after we close it out and get the
Okay,
financial
so-
statements.
Okay. And so we're spending, according to our capital projects, capital plan, I'm sorry, for FY 22, $8.288 million next year. Is that right? Everything but the $25 million at the new elementary school? There was some change that wasn't actually on here, and I don't remember what year it was in, so maybe I got this number wrong.
I'd have to look back and see what the exact number is.
33.288080. That's what it was for FY 22. If you subtract 25 million, that leaves you
But
8 million, right.
288,080.
in that,
Mhm.
for 2022, $678,080 for the Tanner renovations for the front office was budgeted in 21. So I had to reduce the 778 by the 678 that's already been budgeted and only budget 100,000 for that because it's sitting inside of 2021.
Okay. So that's even better. So I guess my question is going to end up being, where are we going to be in the capital projects ending fund balance at the end of FY 22? Like right now, it's saying $275,000, a number I'm not very comfortable with. But I'm guessing that's not the right number because at some point we got to move money over to make it the right
We're
number.
gonna move that big balance over after we get to the end of 21 and the financial statements are finalized. But then I can, after everything's reconciled, I can make the transfer over, but I can't do it until we get everything
So
reconciled.
our budgets are going to reflect what they reflect now when we vote on them.
Yeah, we won't have that final number. I hope that number is greater than we're anticipating even now, but we don't know that at this point.
Okay.
I mean, I hope we can take more funds and put in our capital projects fund.
I just can't do it until we hit the end of the fiscal year.
What?
Reconcile back to statements.
At some point, we've got to have a discussion if we can fund our capital plan by year.
Right.
Because we've
Right.
had the discussion if we can fund it overall. But if we don't move the money over and talk about how much money is actually in there, we can't have that discussion.
Right. But I believe we can based on, if you're saying 8 million, and I don't have the numbers right there, but I think we'll be able to with the refinance, with the 3 million we're moving over. We're moving 4 million over this coming year, plus whatever we take, less the fund balance. So I think that will cover that for sure.
I think we can cover the first year. It's that second year I'm worried about.
And you're talking about the actual money that's going out each year.
Yeah, I'm talking about the actual money, not just the numbers.
Yeah.
We still have the bond funding, you know, I mean, there's still other funds out there too, the 13.2.
We got to pay for it, you know.
But we did think about that when we laid out the entire plan.
Good question.
I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
Love to see the list
Mhm.
of when it comes in.
Well, and then you mentioned about, I mean, we've got our capital, I guess our capital plan fund that we're putting money in. Then tonight you mentioned that the sports capital plan fund that we've not looked at nor voted on.
You've not put, but we went ahead and put it in there, so if you do vote on it and you approve it, that we put an additional 1.6 inside the capital project fund
Is that,
to help fund.
is that numbers or is that real money?
That's real money.
Real money.
Okay.
I put $6 million in sales tax. I moved it out to Fund 11 and
So-
put it inside the capital project fund.
All right.
And so my plan is at our next work session, which is September, we'll go over that sports capital plan and also talk a little more about the regular capital plan in the district as well.
Well, is that 1.2 million represented in the numbers that we got earlier in the week?
Yes, because it's $6 million. It's 4.8 and 1.2.
But we say we're spending 7.3 and 250,000.
Right.
Is inside that 7.3 is the 1.2 that goes to the football,
Well, no,
athletic
because
facilities?
When we move the balance over, we'll have the money to spend there.
That was a Freudian slip, wasn't it?
It was a
When you said
Freudian
football,
slip.
because it ain't, get me started on that.
I think it's recorded, so y'all can play it.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Okay, next we have the superintendent's report. Dr. Strauss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to repeat everything we talked about with the budget, but I do want to talk about the budget just a few minutes because I think Kim and everyone, you know, staff-wise, deserves a lot of praise for putting this together. It's a lot of numbers. It's a lot of money that we're talking about, and we want to make sure that we spend it wisely. I went back and I looked at the last state report as far as expenditures in Limestone County, and, you know, that's where we ranked 126 out of 137 systems in expenditures on the low end. So, you know, you think about it, we're having to do a lot with the dollars that we have in the district. And we're going to make sure we try to spend that wisely so our students benefit mostly from this. Overall, the FY22 budget, I believe, as Ms. Hubbard said, is conservative on expenses and revenue, but it does create more opportunities for our students and employees through increased state funding and local revenue. We are very blessed with what the state has done as far as our budget, but we're also very blessed locally with increased sales tax dollars coming in. And, you know, as of right now, it looks like that's going to continue with the growth in Limestone County. For our employees, overall, a 2% raise given to all employees with additional increases given on the Alabama teacher salary schedule. They were trying to make whole, at least have 2% in between steps. And so if you have 27 plus years, you might get 5.7%. So we're paying our teachers whatever the state said we needed to make whole as far as making sure that 2% is there. So a lot of our teachers will receive more than 2% because that salary schedule is different. So we really appreciate the state providing more money for our veteran teachers especially.
And if you look through your, I'll interrupt for just a
Okay.
second. And if you look through your packet, there's a draft salary schedule in there. It's not all prettied up yet. I did it late last night, but it's just draft pending board approval. So if you want to see what that teacher's schedule looks like, it's in there.
The teacher excellence and accountability for mathematics and science teams, that's a game changer, I think, for a lot of our teachers as well. Hopefully it's going to be a recruiting tool for us, especially since we're close to Tennessee. But as we mentioned before, we have 29 contracts approved. That kind of stepped up later. I think at first we had a lot of hesitance, but that increased over time. And I think as people get more comfortable knowing that they can sign these contracts, I think we'll have more and more contracts being signed with teams. I think the 5 additional custodians will help our schools. There's been some shortages, and we know the stress put on them lately especially. I'm real excited about the possibility of putting $50,000 in the budget for our own students to work for the Limestone County school system. I think that's important, whether it's in transportation or maintenance, but also, teaching as a profession. I would love to put some high school kids in classrooms, and this $50,000 to start. But I think we can put some students in, and we have to determine what we're going to pay them and so forth. But we do have that work-based learning coordinator now in the system, and so we can place these students throughout our own school system. And I always think it's very important, if you're going to show businesses that you want them to take our students, I think we need to be willing to take our own students as well and put them to work. We did put the money in for the athletic facilities. We'll go over that at our next work session. Capital projects, you think we put $3 million in last year, which we thought was really good, but 4.8 this coming year. We know building prices are continuing to increase, and we hope that trend certainly stops. But I think we want to make sure that we have the funding available for the projects that we have in our capital plan. ELA adoption's huge. You saw the increase, but we also put the $1.5 million for the ELA adoption, which is important. Math adoption this year, we spent a lot on the math adoption as well. The new buses, and isn't it great that we get to make a decision whether you want to finance the buses or we want to pay and just let the state reimburse us for those buses over the next 10 years, so 11 new buses there. We did put money for furniture. And Earl will take note of making sure we don't have things outside in the rain and so forth. But I did have several folks tell me that as they tried to set up new classes this year, they really had to scrounge around to find desks for classrooms and so forth. And so that's why we put the money there to improve that. Of course, additional fleet vehicles, which Ms. Hubbard talked about, but also additional teaching positions. And, we received a lot of ESSER funding, which we hired science and math teachers and other teachers throughout the district. We've been able to lower class sizes in some cases and really address specific needs that we have as a school district. And I think the budget is, we have a lot to be thankful for. I'll just say that with our budget for this coming year. And we can definitely make a lot of improvements with our schools and students and provide them with great opportunities with this budget. I will say that we still have time before this budget is finally approved, and so I would enjoy a conversation if there's any questions or concerns. There are some other areas with salaries, and I know we've had some folks talk about, supplements in other areas, and all that will be discussed before we vote on the final budget. But I want to have that conversation with you individually to talk about, those items as well. Any questions for me on the budget? Thank you, Ms. Hubbard, for that presentation. I do want to provide, you did receive a COVID update packet. Numbers are higher. We're right around 2.42% of students testing positive in the district. That's about 204 students district-wide. And we've got 16 employees who are positive, which does include does not include, but 7 bus drivers are also positive in the district right now. So we're watching that daily and, determining what we need to do as far as combating COVID, making sure our students are safe. But 2.42% is the number as of today, and I was looking, if you looked at tomorrow, we do have a lot of kids coming back, but of course we don't know, how many more kids are going to test positive, but it would be 2.20% tomorrow based on the kids that are returning. So it fluctuates every day, but we are keeping an eye on it, and our nurses, Nurse Perkins, they're doing a phenomenal job with what they're doing in the field, so we certainly appreciate them. And tonight is special. We get to recognize Candy Holt. I'm so glad that she joined us at Elkmont Elementary. And she's had quite the journey I believe, from Elkmont, and being the teacher of the year from the school, being the teacher of the year for the district, and then also representing the county at the state level as a finalist is just phenomenal. So certainly congratulations, and of course Mr. Salisbury is here, but we're so happy that Dr. Wayne Reynolds from the State Board of Education is here with us, and he would like to talk a little bit about Candy as well.
You have to come with me. I can't stand alone with this board. I must say that Candy Holt and I know it's, come on, don't be bashful. Candy Holt is really an outstanding educator, and when she spoke at the state level, she just said that she was from a little school. Well, I know Elkmont, and it's a fantastic, large impact on our society, and I do appreciate her. Last year, the teacher of the year was from Tanner. And before we recognized that teacher left Tanner and went to another school system. So actually, by the time we got to the recognition service, it was not a Limestone County teacher, though it was selected in Limestone County. And as you know, I lived here in Limestone County since '88. And I'm very proud of the work all of you do. It's an outstanding system. To run a system with only 9 local units, from an administrator's point of view, is a very difficult situation. And yet provide the kind of quality education that you do is admirable. And all of you chose to be here. You have to get elected and deal with the community. And I, as a citizen of Limestone County, appreciate all the efforts you do. And Candy, you left your plaque over there.
Sorry.
Candy is a traditional Southern girl. Her name is not Candy, it's Candy Lynn.
Candlin.
All right, well, Candy Lynn or Candy is a very fantastic teacher. And I'm proud as your state board member to recognize her and her principal, who is there with me. We had a beautiful picture taken of the 3 of us, and I sent it to the newspaper and to Dr. Shuros.
Hadn't shown up yet.
And I thought they might show up today. Now, if you had some controversy over COVID or masking, the crowd would be full. But we do recognize Candy and thank her for her service and for her principal for keeping her working and helping do the recommendation that it took on her part. And I'm very pleased to be your school board member. We're all facing reapportionment. And the good news is I've been told under reapportionment I will have all of Limestone County in my district. Before, all the other board members, the state board members that are representing this district, have been in Madison County. And so they just carved off part of Limestone County. And actually, I live in Cambridge, and that's only like 3.5 miles inside the limit, because it goes up I-65, and it's not fair to us. We know politically how Limestone County has been divided up between state representatives and state senators. Well, we're not going to be divided up by state school board anymore. So starting in October, I will have all of Limestone County in District 8, which now my district county consists of Limestone, Madison, Jackson, and DeKalb County. Those will be the district, and I will be losing the Gaston area, which is because we've grown dramatically. All of us have, and we're very pleased. We're fortunate. When I said at the school board meeting, they talk about STEM and impact and growth. I don't even relate to the rest of it because we're fortunate. And for y'all to be able to attract the kind of superintendent that Dr. Randy Shuros is a tribute to our community, and I'm very pleased as a former superintendent to get to know him and to get to know all of you. So, any questions for me and this beautiful lady and the principal, who's a fantastic job, it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for doing your service.
I don't blame you.
Candy, hold on. Candy, hold on 1 second. Candy's also helping kind of with the planning for the new Elkmont Elementary, and so that's one of her privileges that she gets as representing the school as well. So, We'll give her all the credit. It's exciting, isn't it? It really is. So, and I think that would be super exciting for Elmont. So.
When I was talking to Candy after she was named, I said, I know Elmont well because I go to the gin house to eat at least once.
Okay.
We have a great facility. Thank you very much for allowing me to come.
Thank you.
Okay. And I have a resolution I'd like to read. Whereas the Limestone County Board of Education and the Superintendent of Education are moved to recognize Candy Holt, and whereas Candy Holt was selected as Limestone County Schools Elementary Teacher of the Year as well as the District 7 Teacher of the Year, and whereas Candy Holt was recognized August the 11th, 2021 as one of 17 finalists for the Top of Educator for 2021-2022 at the Alabama State Department of Education during their annual Teacher of the Year reception in Montgomery. And whereas Candy Holt has worked at the Elmont campus for 16 years teaching kindergarten, 3rd grade, and 5th grade while emphasizing the motto, never settle for anything less than your best. And whereas Candy Holt has also been the lead teacher for Elmont Elementary School 21st Century program for the past 4 years. And whereas Candy Holt has also served as a coach for the 4th and 5th grade Scholars Bowl team. And whereas Candy Holt has previously selected as Limestone County's Teacher of the Year nominee in the 2015 and 16 school year. And whereas Candy Holt will leave a lasting legacy for future generations to look up to. And whereas it is incumbent upon the Limestone County Board of Education to acknowledge and commend Candy Holt for excellence in representing Limestone County schools. Now therefore be it resolved by the Limestone County Board of Education duly assembled that Candy Holt be accorded a vote of recognition and achievement by this board, and directs the resolution be placed in the minutes of this board and be presented to Candy Holt at the August 24th, 2021 meeting of the Limestone County Board of Education. Witness and attest to this 24th day of August in the year of our Lord 2021, Limestone County, State of Alabama. So we have a resolution we'd like to present to you. And thank you for what you've done and continue to do.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Helton.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for your service.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, next we have a consent agenda before us. So, no, you're fine. Thank you. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda before us?
Law for motion.
We have a motion by Mr. McGill. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Shoulder seconds. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Next, item 7 is discussion approval of the personnel action items. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer.
Okay, we have an offer and
I'll second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Item 8 is discussion approval of a renewal of an annual contract with Garrett Callahan Company for chemical treatment of HVAC cooling towers at Blue Spring Elementary at a cost of $4,800. Funding source is the general fund. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous. Item 9 is discussion approval of renewal of introduced school messenger notification service contract at a cost of $15,102.80 funded by the general fund. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer.
We have an offer. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Glaze. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 10 is discussion approval of a renewal of a contract with the Community Action Partnership of North Alabama for Child Nutrition Program to provide a snack and teacher meals for the Head Start program. The funding source is the CNP funds. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I offer.
We have an offer. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
A second. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 11 is discussion approval of purchase of updated version of the Practice of Statistics textbook, 6th edition, for use in the AP statistics course at a cost of $18,981. The funding source is state textbook funds. Do we have a motion for this?
I'll offer motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
second.
Have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 12 is discussion and approval of a renewal of a Kronos Equipment Support Service contract at a cost of $10,987.77 for a period of 1 year beginning October 2nd, 2021 and ending October 1st, 2022. This is funded by the general fund. Do we have a motion to accept this?
Make a motion.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I say.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Item 13 is discussion and approval of additional athletic supplements. Do we have a motion to accept this?
I'll offer motion.
Jules makes a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second.
We have a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I want to make sure we're clear on this, and I also want to say something. But when we started this out, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's my understanding we were trying to, I guess, ante up with other sports other than football because we had given football some assistant coaches in the past. But since that October 7th meeting, we decided to add criteria to this so that if you had a certain number of athletes, you would warrant another assistant coach. We're leaving out football in this, and I would like to see us add football to this because, if they have the player numbers, the participation numbers, it should warrant an assistant coach. And I know that East has 3 assistant coaches they're paying for out of their funds. Ardmore has 2. West will have 1 this year, and Elkmont's looking at having 1. I know about maybe 4 years ago, Elkmont's football program was in the red. So the board, we provided money to all the schools, mainly to help Elkmont get out of the red. So we're asking those football parents to fundraise so that the schools that have participation in the numbers to warrant that assistant coach, we're asking those parents to fundraise to help pay for that. And I think our new coach at Elkmont's done a good job at fundraising, but I still think across the board, if you have participation in those sports, we need to, and we have a criteria according to this that we're going to go by, we need to warrant this to football also. So that's my spiel. So
I got 2 questions. One, let me ask them both before you answer. Why did we leave football off? And then number 2, football's the only revenue generating sport. And so I thought we were doing this to help offset the sports that don't generate a revenue, a lot of the female sports and the smaller sports. Football generates a revenue, and so there is an expectation that if you generate a revenue, that you'll pay for some of these extra things. So.
Right. Well, and I think, right now we pay for 5 assistant coaches at the smaller schools, and we pay for 6 at the 2 largest schools as far as assistants in football.
Yeah.
And we looked at, Rusty and I first started looking at this, we looked at football as a possibility. And of course, we were trying to also look at, how much items would cost if you did everything together too. So we did look at it as from a financial status as well, but we did feel like this would help a lot of our, and I'll call them, they're not minor sports, but would help a lot of our minor sports if they wanted to get additional participation from getting more kids out, to participate on the team. So that was really the reason why, we were looking at this. But we didn't put football when we went over this, this document, the same one you have here, we didn't have football included. We did talk about that. Rusty and I did way back, but we didn't put that on the recommendation at that time. But if that's something the board wants to look at moving forward, we can certainly look at that at whatever point.
On that first list, we didn't have a criteria based on number of whatever games, athletes, whatever. But with this adoption, we actually have a criteria to justify for every sport, so that we're not, they have to meet a certain criteria to justify that extra coach. So anyway, that's just.
Well, this is a question I asked Mr. Bates on he
Yeah,
can
leave.
I can try to answer it.
Well, you know, you go to some of the football games and you'll see 20 people standing on the sideline. How many of those people need to be out there?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. You have alumni that come back, and you got former players that want to stand on the sideline.
What happens if one of those former players get hurt on that sideline?
It is a liability. I mean, I think, you know, we have even some fragile people that stand on the sideline that sometimes could get hurt. You know, that is definitely something that I have, you know, if that's the board wishes, we can address that with our coaches and just tell them that only mandatory people be on that sidelines. Because I do understand what you're saying. I know where you're going with it. And so if that's something, and it is a liability when you have somebody, because we do, that's one of the reasons we do contracts with coaches is to, you know, cover that liability component with the Alabama State Department, not State Department of Education, but Athletic Association. So, you know, we can definitely address that if the board wants us to do that.
That's the concern I've always had, because, you know, if one of those football players, say one of these people that hasn't been approved, says something to them out of the way, how do we deal with that as a system? I mean, if they're not supposed to be out there to begin with.
Well,
It's definitely, it's a good point.
Yeah, if we have a volunteer coach, though, they have a background check.
Yes,
They're not
yes, sir.
an employee. Yes, and he comes before the board.
But you're saying there's more people out there than have had that, right?
My understanding, I mean, I don't know how we can, you go back and forth, because you look at this at big-time college athletics, that's a big deal, letting former players come back, stand on the sideline, and that's, you know, a way to, you know, build camaraderie or whatever you want to call it. But, I mean, I know softball, if you don't have a background check and you've not passed those things, you can't get on the field. So how in the world can we let other people on the field that hadn't gone through that process? Well, I know, but I would be more concerned about the background check and them having access to our athletes and possibly, you know, more than get hurt. And you're right, they could probably get hurt more than we're going to have an issue with the background check. But I'm talking about liability and this board's responsibility. I would want to make sure that they've met those safety standards that are around our kids. So
And I don't think they go in like the locker rooms with them at halftime or you know, anything like that. They just like to stand on the sidelines and be a part of the alumni after.
Yeah.
You know, and it seems to be mostly we have issues in city football. I mean, if that's where you mostly, because again, it just doesn't seem to happen in other sports. But I mean, Dr. Strauss and I can definitely, you know, address that with our principals. We actually have a meeting tomorrow, and we can address it tomorrow with them if that's what y'all would like.
Well, your marker holders are mainly volunteers out of the stand or daddies.
Well, and I think they're a necessary component of football. I think you got to have those, and I don't know that we need to have them required to have a background check.
They're on the other sideline too.
Yeah.
They stand on the visiting sideline.
Yeah, so I mean, but we definitely, you know, they're not essential people.
he just said that out loud.
And we're not worried about the other.
No, we ain't worried about other things. No, we ain't worried about own thing, you know. He didn't mean that for everybody watching online, you know.
We can definitely talk about that. If that's what the board wishes, we can express that to our principals.
Well, the last time we talked about this, it seemed to be that we were trying to get the 7th grade team to play, and now we're adding coaches to football. Is that what we're trying to do? That's not what I'm trying to do, but I'm just trying to see if that's what our goal is.
No, I'm just saying that if there's enough, if we use our thing here has a student or a player ratio per coach, that should include football also. So that.
But it also says game scheduled as if you've started another team with this extra coach, or at least that was my impression. Do I understand it correctly?
Yeah, when we had
a feeder program.
Right, we had guidelines, you know, where we thought, you know, I think some board members had expressed that we needed to have some criteria so they just wouldn't be an extra coach with no responsibility.
Right.
And so that's why we tried to come up with guidelines that they would have
No
to meet.
concession stand workers.
But participation was part of that. You know, you want more kids out, right?
Well, pretty soon we're just going to stop cutting them, right?
Everybody's a winner.
Yeah, just go keep putting them out there.
You talking about kids? You just
Yeah.
got kids. Oh my God! And this is.
Trophy.
Are you gonna get control of this meeting?
I got one more item on here.
Oh my God!
If y'all hurry.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay.
Voting on this as it is. It's just got amended. Okay.
Okay.
I would say yes, because then we need
We
to,
can come back and
Come
amend it
back to
again
this
if we,
other.
yeah, I'm good with that.
All right. All in favor of the item 13, discussion approval? Okay, any opposed? Okay, let the record show that we have one opposed. Item 14 is
I'll offer a
adjournment. Do we have a
motion
motion?
to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I ain't voting for it.